Welcome to the Williamsville Public Library Museum. Today is Monday, September 18th, 2023, and we're here talking to Harold and Carol Carter about their background and living in Williamsville. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's just start at the beginning. So, Harold, do you want to just tell us about when you came to Williamsville?
I came in the summer of '63. My father had died in '60, and we farmed the farm in Middletown for 3 more years. And the owner ran for governorship in Arizona, got beat, and had to sell the farm. So
Okay.
after the auction, I had a surprise entrance to Williamsville. I had been showing cattle at the Logan County Fair and thought I was going home, and my brother said, "No, I'm going to take you home to Williamsville." So he dropped me off at a house on Main Street, and that's how I started living in Williamsville.
So your mom was already at the house then?
Mom had bought the house,
Okay.
unbeknownst to me, at an
Okay.
auction, and my sister and mother and I lived there for several years until we were married.
Okay.
And he's the baby of 10, and
12
Wow.
actually. We lost 2 boys in
Okay.
Kentucky.
his mother was crippled.
Okay.
So he started out with a hard life, really.
Yeah,
I mean, he had a
I'd-
good life
I'd
with
never-
his family, but
I'd never known my mother to be on anything other than cane, crutches, and or walker.
Okay.
So, but she worked in the garden like anyone else would. I was always supported with something.
Sure.
You know.
So how was she able to support you and your sister then?
I don't know.
Okay.
well, your dad was a farmer and probably left money for him to live
Yeah,
on. And
no, we didn't
he
own
had
any.
a family who was.
We didn't own any ground. As far as my existence, I had started working bailing hay at 14 years old and
Sure.
earned money
Sure.
all along. Didn't get paid for anything on the farm, but so when I moved down here, I didn't have any chores to do. I immediately went to the lumberyard to see if they needed any help.
Okay.
And Bill Campbell found out that I farmed and took care of cattle, and he said, "Well, I could use some help at the lumberyard. Plus, I've got some feeder calves that need taken care of every day." So that's how I kind of started out with Bill, and then we closed at noon on Saturday, so that gave me the rest of the weekend. So I went down to Wilbur Fawns at the Standard Station, and he said, "Oh yeah, he could always use help." So I worked there a lot, and in fact, I ran the midnight shift by myself. I think between my junior and senior year.
Okay. So that was one of the Route 66 service stations then.
Yes, the Standard Station, Wilbur Fawns.
Okay.
We actually dated, so he would drop me off after date and then go to work at the station.
I'd throw
Okay.
her out of the car at
Yeah.
11:30 and go to the gas station at 12.
Okay. So you were quite busy then between school and work. What did you do for fun when you had the rare bit of free time?
Oh, I had some dear friends. I was down at the pool hall all the time, and I don't know. I did find time to play baseball in high school, but with the work jobs that I had, I didn't have a lot of time to get in trouble.
And you helped Dad. My dad was a
Worked for
farmer,
Dad
and
on-
he
Okay.
helped my dad.
Okay.
On Saturdays, sometimes Saturday afternoon. And then there was an old guy by the name of Ray Weingart that came up to the lumberyard one time right around noon and said to Bill, "Boy, you just cannot find anyone to work on a farm these days, you know." And Bill said, "What do you done?" "Well, I need fence built, and I need the sheep cleaned out, the barn cleaned out." And he said, "Well, he's not doing anything after lunch, you know." So every Saturday afternoon, then I'd go down to Ray Weingart's and work, you know. He was a dear old man.
Okay. So when you think back to your time growing up here in Williamsville, what are some of your fondest memories? What are the things that make you smile when you look back and think about your time here in Williamsville?
Stanley and Henry Carter were dear friends of mine, and Stanley became the first Williamsville Park chairman. Don't know exactly what year, but Susan Cook House had donated or said she would, or put in her trust that she would donate up to 80 acres if we could prove to the trustees that we could build some kind of recreational facility.
Mm-hmm.
So Stanley kind of took that on and started fundraising, I imagine around 63, 4, 5, I don't know. So when they got that secured, then we had to have trees. Well, Hap Holton had a farm out west of town, just happened to have a bunch of seedlings. So we went out and dug some seedlings and planted them down in the park, and some of them are still there.
And the park you said was 10 acres.
10 acres, built, first thing I did was build a ball diamond and then a tennis court, a shelter. So a lot of my time was spent when I wasn't working, donating or, well,
Helping.
doing whatever the old guys told me I had to do.
Right. Right. So in between all that, you guys had gotten married and started a family. So
in 68 of March 23rd, 68, we got married. I had my lumberyard experience. I became real close to one of our main builders, Willie Benally. And Willie, I had a pretty good job with Yellow Pages by the time I was 68. We got married. And Willie said, "You ought to build a house." I can't afford to build a house. Well, yes, you can. Yes, you can, you know. So he figured me up a little 1,500 square foot house and 1-car garage, basement. $20,000. Went to the bank and they said, "Yeah, we can do that." So I got the loan. Told Willie, central air conditioning at that time was pretty new on the market. And I said, "Willie, what do we, just for the heck of it, why don't we price central air?" "Oh, no, you can't afford that. You can't afford that." "Well, just for the heck of it, why don't you find out?" Well, he came back that afternoon and said, $400 is way too much, you know.
wow.
Well, I think I can scrape up $400. Let's go for it, you know. Willie was a well-respected builder, and we ended up, when we transferred up to Quad City area in 74, we sold that house to Carol's mother and father. She moved in. He died before they ever moved in, but she moved in and lived there for quite a while. Then we came back in 75, got transferred back in 75, and built a new house on Main Street.
What company were you working for when you said you were transferred?
Reuben H. Donnelly Corporation.
Okay.
Yellow Pages.
Yellow Page.
Okay. And so when did the kids come along?
71.
Chris was born 4 years after we were married. And then Penny came, she was 4 years.
Yeah, 3.5, 4 years apart.
Yeah.
Okay. And so did your kids grow up going to school here in Williamsville?
I don't think Chris ever started up at Davenport.
Yes, he did.
Did he?
Chris started in
Kindergarten.
but we came back down at the half point.
Okay.
And so then he finished up kindergarten in Williamsville, and he and Penny both went to school here all through school.
Okay, so they both graduated then from Williamsville High School.
Yes,
And have they stayed in the area?
Chris
yeah.
was down at the rail golf course and works
Okay.
for Springfield Electric. Penny lives around the lake in Springfield and works for HSHS Hospital Sisters
Okay,
in
so
human resource.
And Chris has worked at Springfield Electric forever.
He interned there in college and been there ever since.
oh wow.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So you're lucky your family stayed
Close.
nearby.
6
great.
grandkids that keep us entertained.
But we love dearly.
Very good.
And family is very, very important.
In addition to your family being around, you mentioned some of the community help that you were doing in terms of the park. Are there any other organizations that you were involved in through the
Well,
community?
at that time, there was an organization called JC's in Williamsville, and we put on a homecoming each summer, and that was all well and good until we started turning 35 years old. When you turn 35, you can't be a JC.
At least that's how it used to be. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Really? Okay.
So
Okay.
then we had to form a Williamsville Community Association, and then that continued on to its present form.
So that's now the Williamsville Community Foundation then? Okay. All right.
And he, at the time, well, he was involved in everything, it seemed like. And then we moved to Quad Cities, and he had to give a bunch of that up. But he was on
I was on the town board.
and the church board.
67 to 74, I was on the town board. And we got Springfield Water in that time frame. I don't know, give me the chronological.
Early 70s, he did that.
Early 70s,
Yeah.
you know,
Okay.
which really did a lot towards the development of Williamsville.
In terms of having city water, you mean?
Yes.
Why is
yes.
that?
Well, because the old wells, when I was on the board, I mean, we had a well on the east side of 55 down by the river, one on the west side. We'd pump sand back and forth, you know. We were always repairing pumps. And
Why were you pumping sand?
well, because you're pumping water, sand comes with it.
Okay.
And our water system was good for what it was at the time, just wasn't prepared for what we have now. you know.
So roughly, we're not going to test you on this, but roughly how many people were in Williamsville at that time? We're
When
talking
I
hundreds or
started-
thousands?
Okay, when I started, well, I don't know how far back you want to go, but what was the population? 350, 400 people back then?
So we're talking probably less than 500
Yeah.
when you were on the village board, is what you're saying, when the water was coming to Williamsville.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that didn't, Knollwood was separate, you know,
Mhm.
it wasn't part of our population. But in 89, I told Carol to not let me forget, in 89, when I started my first subdivision, Parkview Court,
Mhm.
on Harpole Street, there was a meeting, a village meeting, and it come up at that time that there were 354 sewer customers
Okay.
at that time. And since then, I have put in 171 lots.
Okay.
So almost half again of the town, you know.
Right.
And that doesn't count what Dut Grading or Augie Casson put in also.
Right. So obviously things have changed a lot as we're looking at 2023. But just to step back for just a second, when you're talking about this community involvement in the organizations, and you happen to mention what's become now the Williamsville Community Foundation, they do a lot in terms of celebrations and organizations to keep the community part of Williamsville together.
Yeah.
Are there any particular celebrations or events that that you remember fondly?
Well, when we did the homecomings back then, we always hired a carnival in. Carnival came to town.
Okay.
And one of our greatest homecomings was we had a huge rain, and the park was just a mud pit. But everyone came, and I remember Paul Patterson, Wyatt Patterson coming down, suit and tie, and fancy shoes with mud up to their ankles, But they had to be at the homecoming, it was a close-knit town from when I came to now, and we brought in so many new people, but a lot of them are really involved, and the school, being in Williamsville High School, I think has been a tremendous asset to the village of Williamsville.
So now, by the time you came, you just went straight to the high school, correct?
Yeah, I was
okay. Okay. I'm sorry, Carol, you were going to say?
I was going to say we drive around a lot during the day or in the evening or whatever, and we are just so happy and excited about the people like you who have moved into the village and been such an asset to the village. It just makes us feel so good to know how
the old timers and a few others around town. I mean, we're just here, and we've helped make things happen. But the new people.
So you've laid a pretty strong foundation for the community, is what it comes down to.
I think so.
As part of that foundation, of course, we kind of feel like we're in Williamsville and everyday life centers on Williamsville, but sometimes we have to look a little broader. And when you think of bigger things on a national scale or even international scale, in the time in Williamsville, are there things that happened that you feel really affected everyday life in terms of, whether it was wars or, something in terms of economic that you feel affected the everyday, that affected Williamsville?
I don't know about necessarily Williamsville, but what affected me was all my friends were going to Vietnam.
Okay.
And when I got my job at Alice Chalmers in 66 actually, they discovered in a X-ray that I said, why are you applying for jobs? Because my back just can't take the lumberyard anymore, So they did an X-ray and they said, okay, I tested high enough. They said, we're going to hire you if you sign this waiver saying you will not, anything happens, we're not responsible. So I signed it.
Okay.
Well, my doctor in Mason City, Dr. Means, got word of that, I guess, and proceeded with it and got me a classification to military would not take me.
Okay.
So unlike many of my friends, I had an earlier opportunity to start becoming something, than they did.
So this Alice Chalmers, for those who might be a little bit younger, can you tell us what kind of business that is?
Well, they produced large earth-moving machinery worldwide, and or at least sold them worldwide. I was in the experimental department, and I didn't work on the lines, produce anything. All I did was categorize the parts came in and put them in their locations and categorize them out when the welders or whoever needed them. So I never really, they had union help to lift everything. I didn't have to lift anything. I just did the book work to keep it going. And that's really when I started work for the Yellow Pages, Reuben H. Donnelly, that's what I started in, was clerical. And I was an accountant kind of person that traveled the state, and we had 6 districts outside Chicago. And I just kind of kept the books straight and helped the guys if they took vacation or whatever. I kind of traveled.
Okay. So were you working just one job at that point? Because it sounds like early on you were working multiple jobs. So for a while you did have just one job at a time?
At that point.
Okay.
I was traveling enough that I just barely had enough time to get home for bowling league night or whatever.
Okay.
I was all over.
Okay.
And then I took a job in the sales department and won several awards and trips, and we got to see parts of the world that other people might not have had a chance to, And
great.
But at the house that we had bought in Davenport, north of Davenport, that's kind of where I started my landscaping. I just, I landscaped my house, built a deck and those those kind of things. So when I came back in '75, then Carol's Aunt Toots, Aunt Mary Fowler, had built a new home, and we also had our new home built in '75 on Main Street. So I was landscaping it, and Aunt Toots said, would you landscape my house? So word kind of started getting out. I bought an old pickup truck, and I started landscaping on the side.
But there he had 2 jobs.
Okay.
And
So then we're back to multiple jobs. Well, it sounds like we're going to have.
You went to Terminex.
Then I went to Terminex in '75.
Left Yellow Pages and went to Terminex.
And with the intention that I was going to buy out one of the partners' halves, Well, I built the business back up enough that his brother said, Dale's not going to sell your, I said, yeah, I think so. So I had 2 big landscape jobs contracted at that time. We were just talking last night in the time frame. Chris was, I think when we were landscaping, we're out of my pickup, in, I don't know, 78 range. Chris was 7 years old, and we had already been landscaping I planted my first field of trees in '77, where Parkview Court took over. But we've got pictures of him. I mean, he had to be like 5, 6 years old pushing a wheelbarrow,
We'd go and he'd come home from his job, and our family would all go and landscape. We only did that a few times, but Chris would be doing the wheelbarrow, and Penny was there. Of course, she wasn't doing the wheelbarrow, but
some of the people that we worked for would send us pictures of him pushing a wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Sure. So it sounds like we have a whole nother conversation to talk about the businesses and the multiple jobs that you've had.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No.
to.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. Because obviously the things that you've done in terms of work is a big part of who you are, your time here in Williamsville. So, but for now, I appreciate you talking to us about how you got started and a little bit about your life here in Williamsville. And I just want to thank you for your time. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you.